In December of 1995, astronomers pointed the Hubble Space Telescope at an empty patch of the sky. For 10 days, this telescope stared at this patch of darkness. And once its exposure was complete, they had discovered something incredible. In that empty patch of darkness that your thumb would likely cover up at arm's length, they found over 3,000 of the most distant galaxies in our universe. Each galaxy contains around 100 billion stars. Each speck of light in the Hubble Deep Field is actually billions of suns burning in the brightness of their being. The darkness contained multitudes, a staggering brightness enshrouded an array of darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. Throughout the Bible, this theme of light and darkness is everywhere. In the reading from Revelation today, we learn that in the eschaton, in the end of time, when God calls all things to himself, God will be our everlasting light. He will expel our darkness. In these instances, it's easy to see that light and darkness are adversarial. They compete with one another. But there are other instances in the scriptures where that isn't so clear. Darkness is not always a bad thing in the Bible. When you were a child, it's quite likely that you were afraid of the dark. It represents the unknown. What lurks in the darkness that we cannot see? What is waiting under its cover to strike at us? The darkness can turn a harmless pile of clothes into a pretty scary monster. The slightest rustle of the leaves in darkness can make our hair stand on end and set our teeth on edge. But in Exodus, for instance, we're told that Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. Or in Psalm 97, we're told that clouds and darkness are round about him. These scriptures and others use the unknowableness of darkness to signify the utter incomprehensibility of God. He is our friend and not a stranger. But do you know your friend's innermost thoughts? Do others know your innermost thoughts? There's always something we don't know of the other, and there's always something we can't know about God. But our love of God is not based on our knowledge of him, but on his knowledge of us. And yet, his loving us despite that knowledge. Revelation tells us that in the New Jerusalem, the eschaton, heaven, people will bring in the glory and honor of the nations. All of these people who are different from us, different customs, languages, and understandings will rush into the heavenly Jerusalem, and what was once dark to us, unknown to us, will become a part of that grand expression of God's sovereign reign in light. But like the Hubble Deep Field, we can only find the light in others when we take the time. Hubble took 10 days and found worlds of light. What might we find if we took just an hour with another and attempted to really see them? There is a prayer that we often pray in evening prayer or at Compline, which has two very different versions in the prayer book. In Rite 2, which we most often say, it says, "Be our light in the darkness, O Lord, and defend us from all perils and dangers of this night." The poet's lost on that version. The original, which is found in Rite 1, says, "Lighten our darkness, we beseech thee, O Lord." It's a subtle but important difference. In Rite 2, we are asking God to shine his light in the darkness, as though we were standing in a dark room, asking the Lord to show us the way out. In Rite 1, we're asking God to shine a light in our darkness. No longer are we merely standing in the dark, lost, but we are now complicit in the darkness. It's ours. It's within us and without us. We don't need God to shine his light in the room. We need him to shine his light in us so that we can be the light that guides others into his marvelous light. Our lives are to be a spotlight that points to the risen Lord, who once upon the cross took into himself our darkness. And then the darkness of God, in his incomprehensible might, overcame the darkness of humanity and our all too predictable weakness. And yet, even in the darkness of the cross, if we take a moment to truly see it, we find that transcendent, uncreated light of the living God. Just like how the telescope took time to peer into the unknown, so are we called into the unknowableness of God. Not that we might learn the answers to our questions, but that we might marvel in him in our own bafflement. As the psalm today says, may God give us his blessing, and may all the ends of the earth stand in awe of him.